Hi everybody, Pastor Jerry here for this week's Around Town with the Pastor. Now today I am at Rustic Grace Estates. Rustic Grace Estates is a beautiful chapel just a few miles west of Van Alstyne on 121, like you're going to Gunter, right on the corner of Hackberry Road and FM 121. You've probably driven by it. I'm sure you've noticed it. We first noticed it about 10 months ago when we moved to Van Alstyne. We were driving down the road and my wife commented out loud what a beautiful chapel this is, and we wondered if it was a place where a congregation met or if it was a wedding venue of some sort. We soon found out that it is a wedding venue. Over the next few months, we saw a number of cars in the parking lot on weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Parking lot was always full. They were always busy celebrating weddings and events. But the last few months, this parking lot has been empty. The chapel's been quiet, all because of the physical distancing and the COVID-19. And I can't help but think about how disappointed the brides and grooms have to be with all the work that goes into planning a wedding and all the preparations you have to make and all the people you contact, all the energy you expend, all the years of planning a lot of women have for this special day, and even guys. I also think about the disappointment of the high school seniors this year all over the country who are going to miss that special event of the end of the school year and all that goes along with that, their senior year, along with the special events of graduating high school. And for the college students, for the 8th graders, for everybody who this time of year marks very special achievements, and just how disappointing that must be. When I think about disappointment, I think about a story in the Bible in 1 Samuel. You may be familiar with this story. It's a story about a young man named Saul. Saul is the son of a man named Kish. And one day, one of Kish's donkeys goes missing. And so he calls his son Saul and he says, Saul, I need you to get a servant and I need you two to go find our donkey, our missing donkeys. So Saul and his servant go looking. Now I can imagine the sight that must have been. Saul was a young man of importance. He was very tall. This Bible tells us he was at least a head taller than the average man. He and his servant look through their neighborhood, look through their town. They don't find the donkey anywhere there. They go out a little further. They continue to search in the next town, the next community. They find no donkey there. And they continue to look. They go further and further. And every community, every town, every territory they come to, they're disappointed because they do not find a donkey. Finally, after quite some time of searching, Saul is getting kind of frustrated and he says, forget this donkey. We need to worry about you and me. Let's go back. I don't want my dad to worry. Let's go back and we'll let the donkey worry about himself. But the servant, kind of depending on how you think about his rationale, he said, look, we're close to this particular community. I hear that there's a godly man in this next town. Maybe he's a prophet. Maybe he can tell us where to find the donkey. So Saul goes along with this idea. These two young men are traveling to the town. They see some young women, and like many of us men often do, stop and ask for directions. And they ask the young women if it's true. And they said, yes, he's up in this town, and if you hurry, you can probably catch him. So Saul and his servant follow the directions of these young women, and they find a man named Samuel. There's also a banquet. And so what started off to be a discouraging day, turning into a frustrating day, leading into a day of disappointment and expanding a bunch of energy that seemed like it was going to be pointless, it ended up being a pretty good day after all. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. The feeling of disappointment, maybe some plans that you have made have fallen through. Maybe you've exhausted yourself with your energy and you've worked incredibly hard to make something happen, but yet it falls through. Maybe you're filled with disappointment. Amid this time in our time of dealing with the pandemic, with COVID-19, it seems like there's a lot of disappointment going around. There's a lot of disappointment happening, but I want to remind us what the story goes on to tell us in 1 Samuel, because we need perspective during these times, I believe. And this is exactly what Saul needs in his search. He thinks he's looking for a donkey, and in the midst of his disappointment, he finds out God has a bigger plan. And here we get a peek behind the scenes in 1 Samuel as we continue to read in verses 15 and 16. Now, this is just a few days earlier. The day before Saul came, the Lord had revealed to Samuel, "About this time tomorrow, I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him leader over my people, Israel. He will deliver my people from the hand of the Philistines. I have looked upon my people, for their cry has reached me." God sent Samuel on a particular day, at a particular time. I don't know if you're ever surprised about what God does or what God uses to accomplish God's plans in our lives. But God has handpicked Saul for a reason, to be the king of Israel and to lead God's people. Saul has no idea of God's appointment for his life. He's just looking for a lost donkey. But let me remind you what it tells us here. God appointed Saul's disappointment for a purpose greater than Saul could ever imagine. I know there are many things in life right now that are very disappointing, but I want to encourage you to keep your head up, to keep trusting that even in the midst of this time when we don't understand what's going on, when we're not sure exactly how things are going to turn out or when things are going to be able to get back to the point where maybe we can begin to pursue again what we had hoped would happen during this month or last month. I hope that you continue to keep your eyes on God and know that God has an appointed time for us and different things in our lives. Maybe it'll look a little different than what we had planned. Maybe our celebrations will be a little different. Maybe it'll be in a different location. But I do believe that God's appointment in our disappointment are things that turn out to be tremendous blessings. Next week, I'll be at a different location. I hope that if you have a suggestion, you'll send it to me. Either call the church or send an email, and I'll be glad to visit a location around town. Let me also remind you and let you know, if you haven't heard yet, this coming Thursday, April 30th, yes, we're doing a new thing called At Home with the Pastor. In addition to Around Town with the Pastor, every Thursday for the rest of our time of physical separation, we're going to be having At Home with the Pastor. So we're encouraging the congregation. We're encouraging you to check your emails and find the Zoom invite that Priscilla will send out this week. Encouraging you to either log on to the 10 o'clock a.m. check-in or the 6 o'clock p.m. check-in with us. We're just going to say hi to each other. I just want to hear from you all to make sure you all are doing okay, to see how you're doing. So At Home with the Pastor starting this Thursday, April 30th, 2 different times. You can pick either one, 10 a.m. or 6 p.m. And we'll be doing this every Thursday morning and evening for these next number of weeks until we're back together physically. If you have questions about At Home with the Pastor, or you would like to find some help on how to get on Zoom so you can be a part of our time together, please call the church office and let us know. We'll be glad to help you out. Or if you would rather us just check in with you by phone, please let us know that as well, and we'll be glad to give you a call once a week. Please know that at First United Methodist Church in Van Alstyne, we love you. God loves you. We are here for you. And again, we just remind you that we are separate today so we can be together again in the future.